Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or wherever you are. I'm Jan Roberts and I'm in Amy Carrier's classroom. And we will just wait for a few minutes for more people to come on. But I'm actually in Ireland this time. Both Arthur and I travel to Ireland during the week. And we're doing some exciting stuff here and meeting some amazing people. And from there we are both sending out for our weekly programs. This is only my second one, but today I will be talking about influential leadership. Last week I talked about what kind of leader am I, and this time I'll be discussing what an influential leader is all about. What is influential leadership all about? But hello Saman, great to see you online as well. And Arti, of course, my companion and compadre in this leadership journey, is online already, and she's always the backbone of everything I do, and again helping me out and supporting me as she does. Hi Julie, wonderful to see you here too. But yeah, we're in Ireland. It's exciting. This morning we walked around Dublin for a while in a beautiful sunny day, and we had the pleasure of being at the castle, and lo and behold, the president arrives. We didn't know there was Ireland are celebrating 60 years in the United Nations. I think the longest serving country in the United Nations. And they actually were celebrating this, and for that the televisions were there, and all the different forces were celebrating, and commemorating a wreath commemorating the people they lost in these 60 years, where their forces and their civilians served all around the world in many, many different countries, maybe in your country as well. And then the president arrived, and he said some wonderful words of encouragement and of congratulations, and also thanking the people for serving the country in a place where really United Nations is a place where countries step up to actually serve other countries, wherever they maybe don't necessarily need to be, but they do this out of their compassion and out of their heart, which is absolutely amazing. And so congratulations to Ireland for being 60 years in the United Nations, and thank you for allowing us to witness the ceremony this morning. It was absolutely amazing. And I say the weather is wonderful here. We've had some wonderful days already, and today actually our friend who is hosting us, Joanna Hessian, who's doing some amazing stuff with her team here, which we'll talk about in future. She was on last night actually with Arthi. It's her birthday today as well, so we've got some wonderful celebrations there. I'm glad to be. Who would have thought a year ago that we would be actually here in Ireland celebrating her birthday in her home? So yes, we're grateful for all these kind of things from Ireland at the moment. And we'll give a few more minutes to. I noticed I actually said on my poster that it was Sunday the 25th, and some of you noticed that, but underneath it gladly said in all the other advertising that we are actually on Sunday the 24th. Of course, we might be time travelers from the south of Africa to Ireland, but we certainly haven't lost a day. So yeah, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments box, and I will do my very best to answer them all. And as they are coming up, and if you have any questions, it's going to be about influential leadership and what that is all about this week. So there's leadership is such a wide and large category that you could pick anything and everything, and you will never cover it all. But I've covered in these 4 sessions about leadership itself. I've picked some very specific topics which I hope will help a bit and explain a few little bits about leadership. And yes, hi Julia, great to see you here too. So yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about what one of these influential leaders is, and what kind of steps you can take to become more of an influential leader. Because if you remember from last week, I actually told you that we are all leaders. So in that way, taking that forward, that means that we're all also influential leaders. And you'll say, yeah, and of course everybody's influential. Now, I love this, and this is something that our dear friend and mentor John Maxwell said many years ago. And the simple thing about leadership, he said, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I mean, we start making things difficult after that. But if you think about that, that means not only that we're all leaders, but also that we're all influential leaders. And this is so simple that sometimes it's hard to understand. But the question, of course, is what kind of leader am I, like from last week, and what kind of influence do I exert to other people? What kind of influence do I bring to the table? And what kind of influence do I get from other people? Do they influence me negatively? Do they influence me positively? And how am I performing in that? Because again, you know, if you expect other people to be more of a positive influence in your life, maybe you should also think about you becoming more positive in their lives, and when they are more positive, pay it forward into other people's lives as well, whether it's your family, your communities, whether your work, anywhere where you meet other people. Because when I talk about influential people, influential leaders, who do you think about? Is it people like JFK, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Madiba, Nelson Mandela? I've been in South Africa a while, where he is called Madiba. But you know, these are all amazing examples of amazing and hugely influential leadership. But you know, what kind of leader are you thinking about? What kind of example do you have a little bit closer to your front door? Because I mean, I get inspired by every single person who influences, and every single person that makes a positive difference. That's positive influence. That's leadership. And that person could be you. So when I say everybody's an influencer, everybody is an influencer. Everybody influences at least somebody. Hi, I'm Breen. Great to see you again as well. Thank you for joining us. You know, everybody influences someone. The question is, how do you influence? Positive or negative? And we might never know how many we influence, but we do influence. And if you ever have read about the story of the butterfly effect, now you might never have seen this before, but if you haven't, I would recommend that you research this. And the reason I mention the butterfly effect is because everyone... see, the butterfly, let's take a step back. The butterfly effect is where they said in the 60s, they said that when a butterfly flaps his wings, it causes air molecules to move. And in turn, those air molecules cause other air molecules to move. And this carries on until halfway around the world, this could cause a tornado. Now, when this was first presented in one of the universities in the United States, they were laughed basically out of the room, because this purely couldn't be possible. But here it went. In the 90s, this was proven to be true on many occasions, and this was not only proven to be true for butterflies, but for all moving matter, including human beings. Yes, that could be you. Now take that butterfly effect and put it into a human context, and there is an amazing example, and I don't want to go into it because that takes another 10 minutes when we talk about George Washington Carver. Look for it, the butterfly effect and George Washington Carver, what really happened. It is stunning, and how either side of his life that butterfly effect took place. I mean, it started with a farmer just trying to save his life, and what happened after that is absolutely amazing. But I mean, the end of that story, and it's not the end by a long shot yet, but this person in that line, who is possibly alive still now, he got the Nobel Peace Prize for creating arable, creating cereal that could grow in the harshest temperatures, and by doing this, he has saved more than 1 billion lives and counting. Now get this, 1 billion lives and counting. Now when I go back to the farmer who tried just to save a young little boy who got taken away by some crazy people, Did he ever know this would ever happen? Never mind what George Washington Carver did all by himself, the inventions he did. But did he know that? No, of course not. All he wanted to do is one simple act of kindness, which was an act of influence in the little boy's life, also his own life, but especially in the little boy's life. Now I take this to you. When you are actually influencing other people, when you are doing something that will affect other people, and that's where the influence comes in, positively or negatively, you might never know how much that effect will carry seeds forward and will grow or destroy things. But I want to always take a positive thing. So something you might do for somebody else or with somebody else or with a group of people, you might at the moment not see much of a difference. Why did I even do this? But in years to come, not maybe even in your own lifetime, things could change that will change the face of this earth forever. It might be because you've encouraged somebody who became another Einstein. You might have said some kind words to somebody who became another John F. Kennedy. You might have said something and helped somebody along who in turn wanted to do something else and became another Mother Teresa, doing good to so many people in the world. You will never know, but the butterfly effect exists. What kind of good will you do today? And hopefully that might do something good down the line. You will never know, but the only way you can actually guarantee that something might happen is if you actually do something good and influence somebody positive today. Then we have the fact that influence, events influences. So if you take this to, if I ask you, for example, where were you when the Berlin Wall came down? Many of you might not have been alive yet by that time. So I'll take it back a little bit forward. Where 14 years ago, around at Christmas, where were you when the tsunami hit, which destroyed 200,000 plus lives? These are huge events around the world, and there are so many of them. When John F. Kennedy, when he got shot, when things happened in the world that will be remembered, when man went to the moon for the first time, all these kind of things. But the more recent ones, where were you when it happened? And that shows that even events influence you, in a good way or a bad way. The world was horrified when bad things happened, and there's many of them, and I don't even want to talk about them, but also pleasantly surprised and energized and motivated when, for example, the Berlin Wall came down. People were celebrating, and families came together again who'd been separated since just after the Second World War, and people had died in these areas because they tried to escape to get to their families and to get to freedom and all that, and all of a sudden this wall was no more. So positive things do happen around the world at regular intervals. We just tend to look at the negative, but that took people who influenced other people to make it happen. I can still remember the Ronald Reagan and President Gorbachev, take down your wall, and this is one of the statements that sticks with me. But that's an event, but it took people to influence. So the good thing about influence is it's a skill, and therefore it can be learned. There's a book about a triangle which includes communication, which leads to recognition, and recognition can lead to influence. I think it's I can't remember the book just now, but I believe it's the 10 pillars, 10 pillars of influence. But there is much more to do with influence when you look in the book, and there's many books about influence. It talks about listening, empowering, and so many more things that you can do to influence. But at least the good thing is, if you feel that you could become a better influencer, a more influential leader, then you can actually go and research this in books, because there's plenty about it. And Becoming a Person of Influence is one good book which talks about this. Then you have another thing to keep in mind. When you look at companies, we always look at the negative when people leave, and this we blame the company, and this company is not treating as well, this company is doing this, and that's happening, and people leave because they get demotivated. But the question is, do they really leave a company? If it happened to you before, did you actually leave a company? Or did you leave people? Did you leave because people were influencing you in a negative way and you said, enough is enough, I don't want any more of this, I'm going to go and I'm going to do something else because this is not what my life is meant to be. But it's usually people that people walk away from. And that says something about influence as well. And people are not influenced by titles or positions. People are influenced by relationships. Now, I'm going to say this again because I think it's very important at this stage that you know that people are not influenced by titles or positions. People are influenced by relationships. And I can easily say that because whether somebody has a title or a position and you get influenced because of the relationship they build with you. You get influenced with the relationship they don't build with you. You know, whether they ignore you because all of a sudden they're a boss and they now feel that, you know, they have a different idea, a different position, and they don't need to connect with you anymore. I always like the things where, you know, the stories where even in sport, like Ronaldinho, he was a Brazilian, anybody knows football, and go a few years back, I mean, he's still around, but he was an amazing player, but he came from the northeast of Brazil in Recife, and he went back very often to influence and encourage youngsters, especially in the slums. He came from a not a very good area, but he always remembered, and he went back, and he went to try and encourage and influence kids in a way that says, you know, there is hope for you. You can actually do what I did. But of course it takes practice and it takes dedication and it all, but he went back and positively influenced people that he walked away from, and he became a multi-millionaire. He became one of the top stars in the world, but he never forgot where he came from, and he came back influencing in a positive way. Just an example. And I read something about influence as well, which I want to share with you, and it says, influence is the power in a person to affect the behavior of others without the use of force or authority. So there you go. Influence is the power in a person to affect the behavior of others without the use of force or authority. So this is something that you can always think about in influence. And I talk a lot about influence because exactly this is the part of leadership that is so important. Influence is impact, and impact is leadership. So if you become a person of impact, how do you become a person of impact? Challenge yourself to become a bigger person of impact today. So, I mean, I said in what kind of leader are you today? The last time, was 2 weeks ago. It says, you know, if you become a better person today than you were yesterday, you're actually improving, and therefore you're also becoming a better leader, because we're all leaders. Now take this: what kind of impact are you making today? You know, so whatever that is, and it doesn't matter if you scale from a 1 to 10 and you think at the moment I'm close to a 0, I'm not making any impact at all. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are right now. You are where you are, and you can't change what happened in the past. But looking forward, what kind of impact would you like to make on people? What kind of influence would you like to have with people? How would you like to, rather than telling you what to do, how would you like to actually influence? How would you like to connect and communicate with people in a better way? So you're actually on the same page sometimes, and you actually understand each other better. You've got better relationships with them. How much better can you impact other lives by becoming a better influencer, by learning to communicate better with them, by learning to listen better to them? All these influence skills, all these pillars that are there that you can bring together, and the more of these you can bring together, the better you will influence people. And I mean, it's talked about in the 5 levels of leadership. Every level of leadership you reach, up the way, of course, will be determined by the way you influence the people around you. Every level. And if you become a better influencer and you connect better with other people, you will automatically become a better leader, because more people will be around you. I always love this when they said that everybody thinks that a leader once they've got a position, but if you walk ahead thinking you're leading and you look around and nobody is following, you're merely taking a walk. And that means is that, when you're influencing people, you can't do that from the way in the distance. You might need to come back and say, hold on a minute, I'm going a little bit too far ahead, so I need to come back a bit and say, let's take a step back. Maybe I'm going a bit too far ahead, because Artie mentioned it as well. You need to always go down and lift people up. And she always says, but what are you lifting them up to? But at the same time, when you can go ahead and lift yourself in all kinds of directions, but if you don't take people with you, what are you creating? A vacuum in there somewhere where nobody connects with you anymore, and that is not real leadership. That is just being a boss. And how often have you been in a position? And there might be some of you here that have my boss is an open door policy. Wonderful. How many people will actually gladly and without any consciousness of having a crossing in their book, go into the office and say, I need to talk to you. I know you've got an open door policy. I need to talk with you, and these are the challenges we're having. How can we actually do this? How can we actually solve this? Because even as an employee, you can have a lot of influence with somebody at higher levels, but you need to actually go into this office and you actually talk to them. But don't just come and complain, because that is negative influence. Come to the table, and I love this conversation going on between Julia and Artie, so wonderful. But come to the table with solutions, with plausible solutions, because everybody has stuff that they can bring to the table, and everybody appreciates when you do come with stuff to the table, because everybody's also fed up with all the complaining that goes on all the time. And I always say, if you want to complain, if you want to actually try to change something, don't just complain, but also come with solutions. So there's something that you need. How are you influencing those around you? Are you a positive or negative influencer? And how do you connect? And how do you bring to the table the fact that you are an influential leader? Because the question will always be, am I a good leader? Am I a bad leader? What kind of leader am I? We talked about last week, but now we're talking purely about influence. And you might not be in the same position. We're not in the same position as John F. Kennedy and all the people, Mother Teresa and Martin Luther King Jr., all those kind of people. But there the question is, how can we become a more influential leader? How can I increase that influence? And I'm glad if you asked that, because there's a few simple steps that you can take. And I'm going to go through them with you just now. And the first step is value people. I've already talked about this, but now I'm talking specifically about these steps. The question is, do you actually value and respect people? Because value people is all about respect as well. And if you do not value people, you cannot add value to them. It's as simple as that. And the second one is, how can you add value to people? Now, this is for each and every one of you to think about individually. Ask yourself these questions and write some stuff on paper or on your computer or your laptop. Think of ways. Find ways how you can add value to other people. And there's many of them, but this is one of the steps. And then you go to the next one. It says, think of different ways to add value to people. So when you've done that, the way you're doing it just now think of, is there different ways? So is there more than I can do, that I am doing right now, that I can add positive value to other people? And maybe it might be for the first time to some people. But add value to people. And if you're doing that, write that down. And the next one is, how can I add more value to people? Or how can I add value to people in a different way? And then it might also be very simple, but do things that add value to people. Don't just think of doing it, because we said about this before as well, and I think I mentioned it the last time. Good intentions alone are not enough. The world is paved with good intentions, but if you really write down what you're doing, write down how you can do it better. Now the question is, When are you going to take action? You've already written down what you're doing and how you can do it better, how you can do more of it, because maybe what you're doing is already wonderful, but we're talking about increasing your influence right now. So how can I do that? Then we have encourage others to add value to people. So once you do this and once you positively influence people, now you can take this a step further. And this is also, in the levels of leadership where you help leaders to build leaders. Now you help people you influence to influence others. So how can I spread this ripple effect? Become a multiplier. So influence will develop in stages, the same as leadership does. And again, there's no coincidence that these two are fully connected, of course. Hi, Amy. Good to see you. Yes, it wasn't 6 a.m., by the way. I don't know where that came from, but luckily you're here now as well. So thank you for joining us. And it's also in leadership as well. What kind of leader am I? Influence is the same, because people are mostly influenced by what they see. So there's a lot of evidence that most people learn visually, and I think I read a quote somewhere. I heard it actually on a lesson, and it says leadership is 70% caught and 30% taught. Okay, leadership is 70% caught and 30% taught. So if you put that into this whole equation, that people are mostly influenced by what they see, and it's 70% caught, then yes, you can look at other leaders and you might not be happy with what they do. They might not be happy with how they influence people. They might not be happy with how they disrespect or respect other people, and you might not think it's enough, or you might not be happy the way they disrespect you. But then what is if 70% of it is caught, then you can be a leader that can be followed, that people watch now, and it might be your children. They'll watch you. I mean, it says always, don't do as I do. Don't do as I. Let me think. Don't do as I do. Do as I say. But most people see what you do and they follow you, and then you wonder why they don't do what you told them. If you just follow that, I don't want to repeat that. But so you can. Everybody can become a better influence in their own families, in their own circles of friends, in their own company, and it doesn't matter who you are. Les Brown once says it doesn't matter whether you're a road sweeper, but become the best road sweeper you can be. Now take that into your business, wherever you are. Become the best you can be. Become the best example you can be, because that's where this leadership goes. That's how other people can catch what you do. And you want them to catch what you do right, not what you do wrong. Because sometimes if you see other people doing things wrong, and then all of a sudden they say, yeah, but I saw you doing it. So how would you like somebody to walk up to you tomorrow and says, or in weeks to come even, and say, listen, I don't know. I always wondered where I got this idea from, how to do something really good. But then all of a sudden I saw you doing it again, and it says, that's where I got it. I saw you setting the best example, and I just followed it. Now 70% of leadership is caught. Be that leader they can catch from. Then there is a few points to keep in mind when you actually grow in your influence. And I think one of them is that you need to model influence. John always says, touch the heart before you ask for the hand. And I think that's a wonderful quote, because what it actually is that no, and that's real influence. When you are compassionate, when you are more in tune with people, when you are listening to people, and you are present, and when you are actually really asking open-ended questions, so you engage other people, but engage them not because of what you can get out of them, but really engage them because you value them, and you influence them in a positive way that way. And that way, when you actually touch their heart, the rest is much easier. It's a silly thing. I think people do business with those they know, like, and trust. But you put that in there when you touch their heart. That's the first step. And when you do that, it's a big step, because it's sometimes so hard, HARD, to do. But it is so important that you actually show people, show your compassion, show that you care, show that you. Sometimes People need that. But how do you influence people when people need it? Are you there for them? Or are you only there for them when you need something of them? You know? And then motivate. Motivate to influence. People don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it might be an old cliche, but it is true. Because you look at people who are good at their jobs, whether it's sales, and that's all about mindset as well, whether it's sales, whether it's and attitude, so whether it's sales, whether it's just communication, whether you see a teacher who actually gets on wonderfully well with his pupils, whether you see just people getting on really well, I mean sometimes total strangers, and they get on well. They start to converse, they start to ask questions, they start to ask questions about the other person rather than talk about themselves. And that's when when people feel that you care about them. And don't do it because you say, okay, I need a sale out of this, or I need to get them to do something, so I better ask them something. No, people will see right through that, whether it's real or whether it's actually fake. I don't always think fake it until you make it is not good in this kind of way, because influence should come from a genuine base of concern and compassion and wanting to grow other people. And I said it last week, sometimes things seem so bad for people, and when they take their eyes off themselves and start being genuinely interested in other people, things will get better. And it's the same here. You know, be somebody that does that. And the same way, if you know, at one of the highest levels of influence is where you can actually multiply this. So become positive influencer in people's lives, and that they pass on what you have actually taught them. Sometimes even unknowingly, you do things because you want to do them right, and people actually catch some of that kind of stuff. And you see, all of a sudden, you see that, and they come back and say, you know something, this stuff you always do, and you always connect with people. I've learned from it, and I now learn from you, and I do this as well. And my life is getting better because you have shown me a great example of exactly how to care for people, how to be influential with people in a positive way, and do it in a way that is non-invasive, that you don't actually want to be all over the top, and know you want to be at their level and go with them, and at some point lift them, but walk with them. You know, it's like the two wings of a plane. If one goes up and the other one doesn't, we're in trouble. But you want the plane to lift, and for that, both wings. So be one wing and be the make the other person the other wing, and make sure you actually come up together and take that plane to the next level and the level after that. But one step at a time, and that's what it takes. It doesn't always happen overnight, but it takes patience. It needs perseverance. It needs a vision of where you want to take where you want to take the other people, and where you want to take the company sometimes, or the organization. But you need to actually look forward for that. So sometimes people say, how do you, and I read this not so long ago, and they said, leadership is a bit like how you fry a delicate fish. And I thought, well, you know, what's coming here? And they said, you fry it lightly. And I mean, I'm not really a fish fryer myself, but I mean, I got that because what it says is, and it says that's what leadership is about as well. What it says is that you actually need to actually be gentle. Leadership is not about being forceful. It's got to be, you know, you shouldn't have too many conditions. You shouldn't be too strict. It should be done gently, because that works best. You remember when you got told as a kid already, you need to clean your room, you need to do this, and you never did it because it didn't work. You slammed the door shut, and you just sat there moping about somebody telling you what to do. Hi Tambudzai, great to see you. And by the way, congratulations on your award at Toastmasters yesterday. I saw it on Facebook, so congratulations. I'm sure you did well. I'm sorry I missed it, but we're in Ireland. And yeah. But that is something that you need to take care of. And then there was something else, that the difference between fast food and soul food, and that's where influence is to me as well. It's something else. I love some of these deeper books, and it actually talked about fast food. It's greasy. It's bad for you. It is too much of it is certainly detrimental to your health. No, you get soul food, and then we're talking about organic food. food that energizes you, food that's spiritual good for yourself. So, if I ask you what do you want, greasy food or soul food, and leadership is the same. Negative leadership is like the fast food, and positive leadership, positive influence is like soul food. So, could I take your order? What will you take? Will you actually choose that soul food where you actually are more considerate, where you are actually listening to other people, where you are doing all those kind of things that really bring a positive influence, or will you choose to actually stay where you are at best? And as I said before, you will only go down, you'll never go up. So, I take your order anytime, and I hope you choose soul food. So, now, if you have any questions, by the way, I already said this earlier on, and if you just came on, if you have any questions about influential leadership, please, bring them. I will answer them. But it's great to see all of you here, and I just want to remind you, I don't want to go too much over time. I think 45 minutes I've just about been on, and I think it's wonderful. I also want to say, this is Amy Carrier's classroom, and it is a privilege and a pleasure to actually be part of a team, because it's teamwork, and that's where Amy had a big goal, and she actually put a team together where we have about 12 mentors from around the world. It's a global classroom where we have 12 mentors, and everyone brings something to the table in a different way, whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it is youth development, whether it is all kinds of training, EQ, and there is just a wide variety of people, even with technical stuff about videos, and I mean, the best of the best are there to help you and give you skills, give you tools, gives you material that you might not get anywhere else, like this at least. Now, these videos at the moment will be on for a short period of time, so I would recommend that you don't wait a week before you watch them, because the video might not be there anymore. So if you have anybody who would be interested, or you think would feel beneficial by listening to any of these mentors, they're on every day of the week. You need to go into Amy Carrier's class to answer a few simple questions if you're not there yet, and then you can become part of it, and you can have access every day of the week. You can have access to amazing mentors. And my partner Arthi is another amazing mentor who was on last night. Her call is still up as well, so please, if you haven't watched that yet, go back to it. It was a fireside chat. It was amazing. There are some amazing people she brought to the table as well. So please go and watch that. But Amy's put this group together for not only for our benefit, that we can actually talk about some of this stuff, but for your benefit. Now, any of this information, my question is, what are you going to do with this? Today, I talked about influential leadership and what an influencer is all about. Will you become more influential? Will you become better at influencing other people in a positive way? Will you go out and upskill yourself? Because this is only a 45-minute lesson, a training, but don't leave it there. Anytime any of these, the mentors are here, and when they have anything that impacts you, don't just say, okay, that was wonderful, I'll try to keep this. Go and investigate this subject further. Go and find out how you can become a better leader, and on top of that, play it forward. So we're in Amy Carrier's classroom. If you have any questions just now, I'll be glad to answer them, and otherwise we'll be nearly done. We're nearly at that time again. But Amy Carrier's classroom is a global classroom. Bring your friends, bring your family, bring your children if you're old enough, and bring your parents if you're young enough. But bring them to this, and share this kind of stuff, because there is so much that is coming. It is an exciting place to be, an exciting place to listen to somebody just talking about some of these subjects that come up. But for me today it was influential leadership, and I think my next subject will be intentional leadership. And I've also got the values of a great leader. That's the section about purely leadership, and then I go over to other sessions. But if you ever want to hear something or anything, if you ever want anything explained about leadership, and you want the whole session done, by all means, ask the question. Because if you don't ask the questions, you don't get the answers you want. And I always say, there is no such thing as a stupid question. Sometimes it is better to remain a fool to be a fool for 5 seconds than to remain a fool for life. Because if there's something you want to know and you don't know it by now, just ask. If there is a subject you want covered, ask. Nothing is impossible. Impossible is I am possible. So if there's anything, please do. So I don't see any questions at the moment. And I can keep going for a little bit longer, but I think, this is just about the right time for me. It feels right. I've mentioned quite a few different things on influence, and if I just go over a few little points to remind you of what went on, as I talked about what is an influencer, and I talked that everybody's an influencer, the same as everybody's a leader. The question is just, what kind of influencer are you? Are you a positive influencer or a negative? And then how can you become a better influencer, and how would you like to influence the people around you? And
there's one question.
There is one question just now. What was the hardest? Oh, Amy comes. Oh, wonderful. What was the hardest lesson you ever learned about being a leader? That's a wonderful question, Amy. There is a few things I've learned about leadership. The hardest question. Oh my. Yes, the hardest lesson. I think at least one of them is that I had to become a better example, because I learned a lot of stuff, but I wasn't sharing it. And I think if you're going to be a leader, you need to share the stuff you've got with other people, and don't do this. I didn't do this on purpose, but I never knew exactly how to share this. And that's why I'm glad for this opportunity, because anytime we have something that is worth sharing, we shouldn't keep it to ourselves. So that's why we are sharing what we're doing here, because it is. We didn't dream this stuff up, by the way. We live some of these examples, and in time you will get to hear some of the my life stories as well, and the things I've experienced. And I've been a follower. I'm still a follower, but I'm also a leader, because yes, you can be both. But I think, and Artie mentioned that just now, I see it, and she always puts it in better words than I do. But to be a better example to other people, we need to actually talk about the things we have. And Julia says, I want to inspire people to bring out the greatness inside of them. Yes. Les Brown says, you've got greatness in you. And this is, it's not the hardest lesson I've learned, but it's certainly another lesson that to be more, you need to do more. And to do more, you need to actually get out there and start talking to people. I mean, I never did Facebook Live before Amy ever interviewed me. And I feel it's a necessity that more of us speak positive things into people, because I've had so much positivity in my life from different angles. And yes, stuff happens to positive people too. And I'm very positive. But sometimes stuff happens and you think, oh no, why me? But somebody once said, if it wasn't you, who would you want this to happen to? And I think we learned the lessons. So the hardest lesson about leadership, and I just thought about this, is learn better, more positive things from your mistakes. Put them into a form that you can actually bring those to other people. Because I have I made a lot of mistakes, and I'm still making mistakes. And I haven't learned from all of them, but I'm learning more. And I think to be able to learn more from my mistakes, and then to bring this to you in one of these sessions, for me will be a privilege and a pleasure. So when you have something that you want to talk about, something that you want discussed in leadership, communication, team building, coaching, youth development, finding your why, these are all sessions that are coming up. But if there is anything else, let us know. Let all of us know. If there is something in cryptocurrency that you want to know that is not being covered, ask our friends. Ask Alec. He is on, and there's an amazing program. If there is something else about the other aspects of leadership that I don't cover, but Artie does, ask Artie. We need to become, and as Amy says, well, leaders need to be very self-aware, and you see so many examples of leadership that are failing worldwide just now, and as Artie covered last night, that's where values comes in, and a sustainable personal development comes in, because we need to keep developing ourselves. And just because we're on the screen here talking and sharing with you, that doesn't mean that we're where we should be. We all, and I can speak for all of us, including Amy, we all continually keep learning about all kinds of things, how we can become better people, how can we learn more so we can offer more value in this classroom. And it's about us being able to offer value, but we can do that so much better when you participate. When you start asking questions, when you start coming to the table with comments and questions and say, you know, I want to know this, what can you, put this on the spot. You know, make us stretch yourselves right in front of you, because I can guarantee you, if I haven't got answers, I will find them and I'll come back next week, or even later on during the day or whatever, I will answer that question below. But stretch us, join us, bring your friends to Amy Carrier's classroom. Now, I think I'm just about to the end of it, so I want to end this just now. My name is Jan Robberts. As you now know, I will be on at 1 p.m. EDT at the moment, which is 7 p.m. South African time, 10 p.m. Pakistan time, and at the moment 6 p.m. Ireland time. Ireland, so it is. We are here. I could say Eichiva, which is Gaelic as well, and you can figure that out for yourself. But it is wonderful to even be, it doesn't matter where the world you are, but it also doesn't matter where in the world we are, because we can connect through this wonderful medium in Amy Carrier's classroom. She's an amazing person who's bringing this all together, not for her own personal gain, but to make sure that this knowledge gets out. A lot of this doesn't get out in the classrooms, in the schools, in the buildings. So come and join us. Let's stretch us. Let's do this together. The more questions you bring to the table, the more people are coming to the table from around the world. And I think I might be wrong, maybe nearly 90 countries around the world are already represented in Amy Carrier's classroom. But there is another 100 countries. So, you know, there is more than enough to come. Join us. We would love to see you here. We would love to see your questions. But for today, I covered, you know, influential leadership. What is an influential leader, and how do I become more influential as a leader? How do I become more influential as a person? So thank you very much for joining me. Have another amazing Sunday, or maybe it's nearly Monday for you, but we are going to have a wonderful Sunday evening celebrating our friend's birthday. And to be here in Ireland, we're going to maybe... we've already been at the Guinness factory, which is wonderful, but we're going to have an amazing evening. I hope you will have too, and I look forward... Hello Shirita, good to see you here. And I look forward to seeing you the next time. 1 p.m. EDT on a Sunday, Amy Carrier's classroom. My name is Jan Roberts. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.